I've come to make an announcement. Wizards of the Coast is a bitch-ass motherfucker. They pissed on my fucking format. That's right. They took their mono red fucking aggressive dick out and they pissed on my fucking format. And they said their monstrous rage was 1 mana. And I said, that's disgusting. So I'm making a call out post on my youtube.com. Wizards of the Coast, you got a small foresight window. It's the size of this mouse, except way smaller. And guess what? Here's what my dong looks like. So the last few months have been hell to be a standard player. Ever since Edge of Eternities, we've seen the pot underneath us boil with the hot flames of the mountain. It feels like every week the format has gotten more and more aggressive, more and more red. And now there's bans, so like, are we saved? I guess, but like for how long? There's a window in between the last set of bans and the rotation. And in that window, the format chef's kiss. It was amazing. It was diverse. There was room for innovation. It was absolutely phenomenal. And then Edge of Eternities came out. And then everything kind of went downhill. And then Spider-Man happened. And then VV happened. And then, you know, everything just kind of got worse. And even then, when it was good, there still was monsters on the bed. No pun intended. With Sidious Roots technically probably being the sleeper best pick in the format, outweighing VV. But, you know, my beloved Anoint with Affliction got hit with the rotation, and that was the best way to remove it. It was the Doomblade that actually fixed the problem. But we have bans. We have bans. Thank Christ! We have bans. I kind of want to talk about them, and I kind of want to talk about what happened this weekend. So let's dive into it. The reason I'm making this video is I went to the face-to-face tour in Toronto this weekend. I traveled the hour into the city, and then I traveled the hour from the city to the venue, and I got there, and it was hailing, and, you know, it was a last-second decision to go. The format was cooked, and I wasn't enjoying it, so I haven't been practicing, but I impulsively went, and it didn't work out. We'll say that. I got there, and I signed up. I wrote down my deck list, and 10 minutes go by, and they're asking over the speakers, hey, who wants to sign up for standard? Need a few more people for standard. And, you know, I go, okay. I see people approach, and they start running out deck lists. But I go to the washroom, and then I come out of the washroom like 5 minutes later, and I'm like, hey, when's standard starting? And they go, oh, it's not happening. And I'm like, oh, what now? And they go, we're gonna refund you. And I'm like, that's cool, but like, is there anything else going on today? They're like, you could sign up for like draft, I guess. And I go, okay. And then I go home. And that was my weekend. Who's to blame here? Because that experience was shit. Do I blame face-to-face? No. Do I blame the players for not wanting to play standard? No, I don't blame only 6 people coming out. Standard fucking sucks right now. And like, hopefully the bans help, but yeah, the tournament was going to be hell anyways. So do I blame them for not going? No, not at all. Do I blame face-to-face? No, they announced this was going on in June 4th. And then Wizards of the Coast went, okay, you know your tournament that's happening on the 8th and the 9th? On the 10th, we're changing the format. So nobody's going to want to come because the format changes the next day. So why practice for this tournament when the format changes the next day? Do I blame Wizards of the Coast for making the ban? No. The format needed to change. The format was shit. The format was terrible for 5 months. Ever since rotation, Vivi has been unchecked. So do I blame them for wanting to move the ban window up? No. I think that's the right choice. I don't blame the players. I don't blame the decision to move the ban window up. I don't blame Face-to-Face Tour for not being able to plan over Wizards of the Coast making a last-second decision. So where do I put the blame? Because it sure as hell isn't with me. Why the fuck do we only get 2 ban windows per year? They said it in the article. They said this was an issue. No shit. Have you played a competitive game before? Why is there only 2 bans a year? They're fixing this. This could have been prevented easily. And not only could it have been prevented, it should have. It should have. When they said at the beginning of the year that they were reinvesting in Standard, why were they not okay with doing this? 2 ban windows is not enough when there's 7 sets a year. Going on 8 next year, it's insane. They clearly don't have enough testing. There are things that have been slipping through the cracks. So if we're doing 7 sets a year, if we are still trying to prioritize Standard, if we are allowing for stability long term with 3-year Standard, which, let me just say, I agree with almost all these decisions. I'm fine with 7 sets a year if the sets are smaller. I don't give a fuck. I don't fucking make me Jesus, put me to a cross. I don't mind Universes Beyond. I don't mind Universes Beyond being in Standard. I don't give a fuck about Magic IP. The game is fun. I enjoyed the game. I don't give a fuck about Jace. I come from Hearthstone. I don't care that the hat sets exist, right? In Hearthstone, our entire game was hat sets. I care that Magic the Gathering is a fun game. I care that the competitive circuit makes sense. I care that I have something to strive towards as a competitive player. Does Iron Man ruin that for me? No, I don't give a fuck. What I do give a fuck about is when, because of these decisions, Standard gets cooked as fuck, and because we're appealing to what has always been, because the Magic the Gathering community is so averse to change that we only have 2 ban windows a year and allow mono red and fucking is it to be the deck the entire year when everyone with over 3 IQ points fucking knows this is a problem with no interactability. That's what I have a problem with. The fact that it took 5 months to do this, to do the change that everyone has been screaming from the hilltops since fucking Tarkir to change. I've been having conversations. There's a Discord. I won't say the name, but I found a link to it. Infiltrating it. I've been infiltrating it because I want friends. I want people to talk to about Magic because I like talking about Magic. So I've been entering this Discord, and in it, there's a few people that go to tournaments in Toronto. That like I see them every now and again, and we compete, talk about our goings on in Standard. And I've been talking about the bans with them, and they have brought up some points, and I feel bad because we checked the logs of the Discord. I'm 90% of the Standard chat. I care about this format a lot. I love competitive card games. Sue me. And I'm very opinionated. I don't know if you can tell by my channel, but I'm very opinionated. The first response was, is Dimir just going to be an issue? I played Dimir. I think it will probably be back to the best deck in format. If not the best deck in format. But I think that's good. And I know I'm biased, but hear me out. I think what makes Standard important to me, and what they have expressed in this article, and what I agree with in the banned and restricted article, is that Standard should feel interactable. Should be able to interact with everything at a given time. There should be a way to counterplay what is going on. And this is a big thing that they stressed, right? Dimir is counterable. You can win against Dimir. It's good. But what makes Dimir good is not that it wins every game. It is that it's so flexible. What gives Dimir its strength is that it may not have an 80% win rate overall, like VV does, right? Where it has an 80% win rate except for mono red, which it loses to, right? That's VV. What Dimir says is, okay, I'm not going to have an above 65% win rate against any deck, but I'm going to have a consistent win rate because I can tweak my deck versus the matchup, and I can have a good matchup spread. That's what Dimir does. Dimir is beatable. There are ways to beat it. You can run Nowhere to Run. You can run Inevitable Defeat. These things counter Dimir really hard with the Kaito package. You can run Removal. You can get rid of the small little dorks, right? Counter the activations of Enduring Curiosity. There are ways to play against Dimir, and it will probably be the best. Do I see a world in which Kaito Bane of Nightmares gets banned? I don't think so. I think that card is too cool, and I think they want that card to be around. And I think that's I think I agree with that decision. I think Kaito is probably the coolest part about the Dimir package. I think it leads to fun gameplay loops, and I think it's not uncounterable. Do I see a world in which Enduring Curiosity gets banned? Yeah, probably. I think if Lorwyn comes around and Dimir is above and beyond better than everything else because of the fairies and Enduring Curiosity, I think that gets banned. I think Enduring Curiosity is the part of the mid-range that gets banned, and I could see that happening probably in Lorwyn. The way that I see Dimir going, I don't think it's going to change much with Avatar The Last Airbender from what I've seen. I think it's probably going to go into the fairy package because the Wilds of Eldraine has a lot of fairy synergies that will get boosted by Lorwyn Eclipsed, so it's probably going to go fairy-wise. That's already been a thing, especially pre-rotation with Fairy Mastermind. So if we get anything that pushes a little bit farther like Fairy Mastermind, I think that's probably where Dimir's going to go. And then, of course, if we get Ninja support, then Kaito gets better. So I think what they're probably going to do is they're going to somehow push Dimir with fairies. We already see this with Bitterbloom Bearer. And then they're going to have to ban something out of Dimir. And I think that's probably going to be Enduring Curiosity, because I think that card is very pushed. And they want to keep Kaito Band of Nightmares because it's a cool card. And then Dimir will somehow be a mid-range shell with ninja support from Teenage Mutant. That's my prediction. So yes, that is the first complaint I heard, which is, are they just making Dimir the best deck in format again? Yes. Do I think that's a bad thing? No, because Dimir is interactable, and I think there's a saying that there's always going to be a best deck in format. I think Dimir is one of the better decks to have as that. The next thing I heard was not from the Discord, but is from the YouTuber That Mill Guy, or Shaff. I like his videos a lot. You should go subscribe to him. I'll probably put a little annotation here, hopefully. I remember. But he said in his video about the bans that it was weird that Screaming Nemesis got banned. I don't think so. I think that's also a big part of this was interactability. And I think Screaming Nemesis was insanely pushed, and I think it is an outlier. It should be a modern card. It should not be a standard card. I think the big issue with Screaming Nemesis is that when you try and counterplay it, there's counterplay to your counterplay, and that's not fun. I think the philosophy around Screaming Nemesis was there are 3 ways to counteract mono red decks typically. There is life gain more life than they can damage, and then they run out of gas. There is blockers, where you stop them from being able to deal the damage as fast. And then there is removal check. They check if you have enough removal, and if you have enough removal, they run out of gas. If not, then they win the game. What Screaming Nemesis did is it said, okay, if you have blockers, now this doesn't matter because if you have big blockers, then that's now a detriment. You can't block Screaming Nemesis with it. It also said that, okay, if this gets damaged, then you can no longer use the life gain way of countering the deck. So it turned into a removal check card. It is a Dice to Doomblade. That's usually fine. Usually. It goes a little bit too far. And I think the best way to illustrate this is with an example that happened to me. So I went to a tournament not too long ago. I played against mono red aggro. And again, I'm playing Dimir. So Screaming Nemesis comes down on the board, and I'm facing it down. And I have removal in hand. I left up 2 mana for this. I target it with my Bitter Triumph. I take my 3 HP, right? And I'm going to kill it. He has 1 mana up. And with Bitter Triumph on the stack, I've already paid my 3 HP. He targets a Screaming Nemesis with Burst Lightning. It takes 2 damage. It deals 2 damage to me. I no longer can gain life and try and play that out with my Unholy Annexes. That disables my entire game plan. And I'm just like, what was my counterplay to that? Should I have held up 4 mana so that when he puts the Burst Lightning on the stack, then I target him with my second Bitter Triumph? But now I'm down 2 cards and 4 mana. There's no way to interact profitably with this. There's no way to stop this. There is no split second removal. There is nothing. There is nothing to do about this interaction. So yeah, I do think Screaming Nemesis should have been banned. There was no counterplay to this. And you might think, this doesn't happen. If you're a good player, this happens every single time Screaming Nemesis comes down. There's 4 of Screaming Nemesises. Okay? It's not unlikely that they removal check you on turn 3, and then they removal check you on turn 4, and then, like, do this interaction. That's what happened in this game. I removal check. I paid my 3 life the first time. You know, fool me once. Shame on you. Fool me twice. I guess I'm just fucking dead. That is not fun. That made me want to drop out of the tournament. I'm glad this interaction is gone. So, thank Christ. Thank Christ. Bit controversial. Thank you. Before we get into the main contention, let's talk about Vivi. Everyone knew Vivi had to go. Everyone, even me. I was solemnly in the Cauldron should go camp. I think that Wizards of the Coast should prioritize banning older cards that have already had their time in the sunshine to rotate early. I think that Vivi, without Cauldron, becomes a Dice to Doomblade card. I think you can interact profitably with Vivi as long as Soul Cauldron doesn't exist. As long as Vivi has the weakness of it can just die and get no value, I think that's fine. I think what breaks the Vivi deck is that when you're playing Vivi Cauldron, you want your Vivi graveyard, and I think that's bad. I think if we're making a card that should be a Dice to Doomblade character, I don't think it should get better value by dying. And Wizards of the Coast reaction is to ban Vivi. And I can understand that. Do I agree with it? I don't care. The interaction's gone. Realistically, they could have banned either one. I think it's probably fine. I think Agatha's Soul Cauldron, even if it is a pushed card, even if it does seem like a modern card in a standard set, I think it's cool enough that, like, if we want to keep that in as a pushed card, I think that's fine. That leaves us with Prof's Eidetic Memory. I'm just going to call it Prof's because that middle word is scary. I think the philosophy given by the article and inferring between the lines is with the Vivi Cauldron deck, you have 3 cards. You have Vivi Ornithir, you have Agatha Soul Cauldron, and you have Prof's something memory. If you leave 2 of these, it's going to be a tier 1 deck. It might not be the best deck in format, but if no matter what 2 of these 3 cards, if they're in the same format, they're probably going to be a tier 1 deck. Would Standard be fine with only one of these going? Would Standard be fine if the Izzet deck just became Cauldron plus Profs? Maybe it's just an alright tier 1 deck, but maybe not. And I don't think Standard can take the PR hit of the best deck in format being Izzet for another 5 months. I think Profs is a PR ban, and I tend to agree with that. Let me elaborate. The argument that I hearing from this group was that Profs wasn't an issue before Vivi. Yes, but that also was not the same world that we are currently living. And I think, could it be left in Standard? Yes. Should it be left in Standard? No, I don't think so. Before Vivi, got to take it back to Tarkir Dragonstorm. What was the meta in Tarkir Dragonstorm? This is when we still had Corey Steelcutter, and this is when we still had Up the Beanstalk. Corey Steelcutter, if you were running an Izzet deck, was just simply better. It was better than running some Prof's Memory Core. So if you're running Izzet, why wouldn't you just run Corey Steelcutter? Even if Prof's potentially was slightly better, and I might think that given more time in that meta, maybe Profs would prop up as a good deck in that format. Maybe it was just undiscovered. But realistically, Corey Steelcutter was easier to execute and it was more consistent. Then there's the fact that since Tarkir Dragonstorm, there has been even more support for Prof's Memory getting better. Duelist of the Mind has started popping up. Quantum Riddler was added to the game. Winter Night Stories has been exposed for being way too pushed, especially in one of these decks. Editing me here, hello, I forgot to even mention Consult the Star Charts, and that card is absolutely disgusting. It's not the same landscape. Versus Light Shatter synergizes with it. Fear of Missing Out is gross. I don't know. Something's got to go. Something had to go. Or else, the next best deck, even if it wasn't as oppressive as Vivi Cauldron, it still would have been good enough. And I think we're losing Standard players. We can't even get 8 to run an event in Toronto. I think it's for the health of the format, for the health of the player base. It just needed. It was needed. The other point as well is before the Final Fantasy bans earlier this year, you couldn't tap out and play a 2-mana enchantment. Heartfire Hero and Monstrous Rage were still in the format. That just gate kept what you were doing. You couldn't afford to get a profs down even if it was good. You needed to have such a pushed deck that was going to ramp to hell and back that you had to basically play up the beanstalk and domain. And that also was eating the lunch of what potentially would have been the profs deck, because if you're going to play profs, why wouldn't you just play up the beanstalk? It's the same sort of enchantment, but it's better. And the deck is better. And it does better against the current format. And it does better against all the common decks in the meta. Even if profs wasn't good before, that doesn't mean that profs wasn't a good card. So am I glad that that's gone? Yes. Did I really care if it was gone? Not really. Am I glad that it's gone? Yes. Around Magic the Gathering recently, there has been so much disappointment and hate, and I think a lot of it is justified, but I think a lot of it isn't. And I think the entire player base has lost their collective rocker, and I think it needs to be reeled back a little bit. Universes Beyond is a good thing for Magic the Gathering. I know you hate to hear it, but it is the truth. Magic the Gathering IP does not exist. Nobody gives a fuck about Jace and Vraska. I could ask 100 people on the street who Jace the Mind Sculptor is, and I don't think a single person could name it. I asked some of my friends who play Commander a lot if they know who Jace the Mind Sculptor is, and they say no. These are people that actively play the game, that actively engage with the game often, and they don't know Magic IP because it has been so mismanaged. I know you care about Jace. I know you care about it. No one else does. And I know you hate to hear it. I understand. Trust me, I know so much about League of Legends lore. That shit gets retconned every 2 weeks. I think the Magic the Gathering community doesn't understand anything. A common sentiment I see in the community is that anything that Wizards does that generates profit is inherently evil and should not happen. I think Commander is one of the biggest plagues on Magic to ever exist because it doesn't support the game. Local stores are important. I get that. I love my local stores. They're what got me into Magic the Gathering. Shout out the Intergalactic Trading Post in Germany. Name here, here's their card link thing to buy cards from them. I love that place. It kills me every day that I can't go back there because I no longer am in Germany. I love my local businesses. Don't get me wrong. But Wizards of the Coast needs to be profitable or else the game ceases to exist. I feel like there's a common sentiment in the community that, it should just be free. It should be for everyone. Motherfucker, it is a luxury hobby that we are lucky to have. If your biggest thing in life is that you cannot open a pack a day, you are a fucking addict and you need to go outside and touch grass. I recognize the irony of I am alone in my room shouting about cardboard, but I'm a hypocrite. I don't care. Commander doesn't make money. Yes, you buy a precon every now and again, but proxies are so prevalent in that format, and there's honestly no reason not to use a proxy. The reason not to use proxies in constructed formats like Standard is that they have to be officially sanctioned by Wizards of the Coast, and part of being officially sanctioned by Wizards of the Coast that you cannot use proxies. You can play Commander anywhere. Do you even have to go to your local card shop? Half the time I'm playing Commander, I'm playing at a friend's house. And I'm benefiting off of Wizards of the Coast making new cards, new interactions, so that I can continue to play with this. But I'm not supporting Wizards of the Coast when I'm playing Commander because I'm fucking using my printer. I'm supporting OfficeJet. And when Wizards of the Coast goes, okay, we're bleeding money trying to cater to a Commander. We have a lot of players, but we're not monetizing it well. So, we're going to try reprinting old cards in secret layers. The community universally fucking hates it. And I think, yeah, it's probably run bad right now, but just screaming that you hate secret layers, not fixing the problem, bro. And you might be thinking, man, He's really subtweeting the prof right now. No, I think if you think that's the prof's opinion, I think you are mentally ill. I may disagree with the prof a lot, but I think he is a force for good in the community, and I'm glad he's creating videos, and I'm glad he also helped me get into Magic. It's you that I have a problem with. I'm calling you out specifically. The person watching this video that's typed their comment already, probably not even in this part of the video yet, because, you know, you probably agree with me on some level if you've made it this far, but it's you that I don't like. It's you, the radical, like, communist that is fucking seeped into this community. I think you're dumb. Let's be real. I think you're dumb. And I think you don't understand how this is working. Magic exists because we give Wizards of the Coast money and they create a product that we like. If you don't like that, you don't have to engage with the product. You can step out. I've done this personally. I have not given a single cent to Riot Games since I started working with Saudi Arabia. That's my line in the sand. I think that regime is fucking awful. And I don't want to support anything that could help that. So no, I don't give my money to Riot Games. I stopped paying attention to the esport, which was so much of my personality. You don't know. Riot Games is making me pay my therapist bills, by the way, because fuck if I know what I'm doing with my life, because that was my life growing up, was paying attention to League of Legends esports and learning about that. And now I feel like a shitty person for supporting that because Riot Games has made a decision that I disagree with. I've taken the personal sacrifice. If you are this vitriolic about the capitalist regime, fucking have some backbone and actually put your money where your mouth is and stop contributing to the system that you think is so flawed. I think the system is good. I'm a capitalist. I'm a social capitalist, but I'm a capitalist. I'm going to support the things that I like. You know, I don't mind that they tried the Spider-Man set. I think it was bad. I'm not going to buy more Spider-Man products. I'm voting with my wallet. This is how the system works. The system doesn't work by you buying the product and then saying you don't like it. This isn't how this works. And I don't think ignorance is a valid excuse here. This kind of leads me into my next sort of point, is that Magic the Gathering has become a speculative asset. Maybe it was always this way. I don't know. I'm kind of new to the community. I was playing Hearthstone before. The fact that people are scared about bans because that affects people's wallets is fucking insane. Do you know what we're doing here? This is not investing. This is not the S&P 500. This is a game that we play with cardboard. One of the best parts about Magic the Gathering to me is that I buy this card, it's $10. This card will retain value. I'm not going in with the fact that I want this $10 card to be $15 in a year, which is apparently what half the people in this fucking brain-rotted community are doing. It's the fact that in a year and a half, after I've played with this card, I can then sell it back for $8 and continue to play the game. That's what Magic Finance should be. It should be you put an amount of money in the game, and then that allows you to continue playing the game even if things shift. The fact that we are catering towards people that care more about the value of the card financially than the value of the card as a play piece is disgusting. And I think it needs to end fast. The reserve list, I think, is a stupid idea. And a pseudo reserve list with Universes Beyond, I think, is a big issue. And I've heard this solution from one person, but fuck you, I thought of it first. I just didn't publish it. Yes, I am egotistical. How can you tell? Is that they've already printed Universes Beyond cards in Universes Within by using Through the Omen paths on Magic the Gathering Arena and Magic the Gathering Online. If they see a card that is way super hyper inflated and they need to reprint it to keep the ability to play the format, not $500 fucking dollars for a deck, I'm fine with them reprinting Universes Beyond in Universes Within with like Through the Omen paths style set in paper. I think that's a good idea. I think they should do that. I think they should say at the end of the year, we're going to reprint some of the most expensive Universes Beyond cards in a Universes Within flavor in a Through the Omen paths set. I think that'd be great. I would cheer that on. From my knowledge, they used to have that with like the master sets, but since I started playing, ain't got that. We just gotta hope that it gets reprinted in like a secret layer, I guess, but those aren't print to demand, so guess we're fucked. And I think this is one of my big issues with the community, is that they view everything that is slightly driven by profit as inherently evil. And Wizards of the Coast is an inherently evil company, and they lie to us. They lie. Wizards of the Coast lie. All they do is eat hot chip and lie. That's what all Jace does. I think that's fucking mentally ill. I'm gonna say it. I think that's completely detached from reality. I think you just hate capitalism and you're wanting to find a villain. Like, and you know what? Pop off, I guess. I think you're just dumb. And I think Wizards of the Coast shouldn't listen to you. And I think you should be, like, basically extracized from the community. And your opinion shouldn't be taken seriously because you're not a serious human being. But what's my read of the situation? Dude, I think Wizards of the Coast is just fucking... I think Standard is kind of just a back burner product now because they're trying to cater towards Commander, but Commander doesn't make any fucking money for them. So even though Final Fantasy is hitting record sales, they don't really know how to make this sustainable because the switch between 60 card constructed formats to Commander has been such a weird change in their like way of getting money because the cards that Commander players are buying, they're no longer printing. So it's all secondary market. Whereas with 60 card constructed, the cards that people were buying for constructed were the new products. So where do we go from this? I don't know. My read of the situation is if you've ever just had like a friend that's fucking gorgeous. They're beautiful, they're amazing, they're like incredibly sweet, they're honest, they're hardworking, you're like they're a catch, and they just have the most loser boyfriend. Absolutely imaginable. I'm talking about myself. No, but Magic the Gathering is such a good game, but Wizards of the Coast continually fucks up. And the worst part about it, I don't think it's malicious. I don't think it's malicious. I think they're just stupid. I think they just have a loser boyfriend that just fails at everything they do. It is what it is. It is what it is. And you just gotta hope that that guy gets his shit together. Wizards of the Coast, go to therapy. I can give you my therapist's number. I don't think they're taking any more patients right now, but I'm pretty sure I can make them make an exception for you. I don't know. This is my rant. I have so many thoughts and opinions, and I've been holding this in. Yeah. Conclusion. Fucking don't limit yourself by ban windows. If something's bad, just ban it. The secondary market shouldn't dictate decisions about game health. I think that's fucking don't listen to the community as much, because the community, for the large part, is fucking stupid and doesn't know what they're talking about. I don't know. Bye, I guess.